artist friends, welcome to the May edition of Mixed Media Menagerie. This month we are using watercolor, soft pastels, and florals as our inspiration. I honestly have to admit that it took me quite a while to figure out what I wanted to do, but once I kind of got an idea in my head, I got to work. I first started by gessoing my pages and then adding some ephemera with matte medium around the edges. Next I grabbed my gesso to kind of push that ephemera back and soften the edges. Part of my brainstorming process this time was looking online for pictures of florals, looking around my studio to see what I had that was floral, and then grabbing some stamps out. And I really wanted to stamp some stamps in my background. However, I was kind of concerned about how it would stamp into my journal. And then I thought, hello, Nicole, why don't you just stamp it on the paper first and then add it to your journal? So that's what I did. I grabbed my black archival ink, these large stamps by Unity Stamp, and stamped them on some ledger paper. I stamped several of the images so I'd have enough to layer on my journal pages, but also have a couple extras just in case I made a mistake. I ripped the papers in half so I'd have the images and the text all going in the same direction, and then used some other papers as masks so I could have partial pieces of these florals on my pages as well. After stamping those images, I began to play on my journal pages and then decided I needed one more. I didn't like how this image stamped on the paper. It had some red lines from the ledger paper through it, so I re-stamped it again to use it on my page and continued to play with the layout and design of the left and the right side of my journal pages. Oh, I also didn't mention in the beginning, I did leave a page between my spread here. I think you've seen me flipping it back and forth. I'm planning on putting a saying on this center page as a tip-in, kind of already embedded tip-in. I knew that I wouldn't have enough room on these two pages to add the lyrics from a song that I wanted to add, so I decided to leave a center page as a way to add those lyrics without disturbing the florals that I'm creating on the left and the right sides. I feel like I have my sides just about how I want them, adding some other pieces from the ledger papers on the top and different places where there needs a little bit more of that ledger text. And then I'm going to pick up my phone and snap a photo just in case these get blown away by the fan in my studio or something funny happens, I know I can never get it back the way I want it. As I was laying out those stamped images, I decided the text in the background was too, what's the right word? It got in the way. I could see it too much. Distracting. It was too distracting from the images, so I grabbed some more gesso and pushed it a little bit farther into the background. Then I grabbed this Lyra graphite pencil or crayon to use in the background. It's water soluble. I've been using it every month in my spread. It was part of the kit that we offered at the beginning of the year, and I wanted to try to use it in each layout some way to add like a consistency or kind of a thread that goes throughout my journal this year. So I'm just adding it to add a little bit of grunge and color into that background. Once that Lyra is dry, I'm adding the collages I made with the stamped images to my background using matte medium on the front and the back to just secure them to the pages. I'm going to fine tune it a little bit, rip some of it apart, maybe add some different images, but basically I kind of keep the same layout that I created in the beginning. Thankfully my fan didn't blow it around and it was saved, but had it happened, I could have used the photo that I took with my phone earlier. And when this matte medium is dry, I'm going to pick up my gesso again to soften the edges of this ledger paper. It's kind of like choppy in different like chunks of it. And so I'm trying to kind of make it look like one page here, more embedded into the background, softening the edges and adding a little bit more interest for the next layers of color that I'm going to add to my page. Alright, now it's time to finally add the watercolor that all those background layers are dried. I grabbed my Core watercolors. It's actually spelled Q-O-R. They're a division of golden and one of my favorite watercolors to use. They're really bright and cheery, and part of my inspiration for these pages is the beautiful spring wildflowers that we have here in Texas. It is my absolute favorite time of year. The sides of the roads and fields are just exploding with color, and so that's what I'm trying to do here on my background page, or my background pages. They're not background anymore, they're what I'm trying to do on my pages to add color, just an explosion of spring color. Now I'm starting with yellow first because I know that once I add the darker colors, I can't add the yellow. So I'm going to start light and go dark, and then I'm also going to allow this to dry in between color changes so that the watercolors don't activate too much or mix and mingle and create non-wildflower colors on my journal pages. I have two other inspirations for my pages besides the wildflowers here in Texas. We have a gorgeous billboard in South Austin, and the first time I saw it, I think it took my breath away. It's so beautiful. I'm going to pop that image in right here so you can see it. So I'm using the colors and the wildflower inspiration from that billboard, and also the billboard happens to contain a song I really like, so I'm going to use those lyrics also on my pages as well. Now I'm adding just a touch of green. I'm trying this color out for the future, wanting to see if I wanted to add green throughout. It's kind of giving me like a base of if I want to add the green or not. I'm going to continue to layer color on, adding some red on top of those poppy shapes, purples and blues, and just layering color. Again, every time I add a new layer of color, I pause, do some other work in my studio and allow it to dry, and then come back to it so that the colors don't mix and mingle too much, but just enough. Now I'm just adding some final touches, some little darker reds, some oranges to kind of make the darks darker, keep the lights a little bit light, to add just contrast and details to these explosive watercolor florals. So now that my pages are almost dry, I was really impatient and I couldn't wait for it to completely dry, so I'm being very, very careful here. I should have probably waited a little bit longer for the color to dry, but I'm being absolutely careful and adding just touches of green in between the flowers to kind of bring it all together. When you look at the fields of wildflowers around town, you see lots of green too in between the flowers, and it's just such a calm spring color. I wanted to add that green in between the flowers to make them look like fields and to push some of that white away and add more color to those wildflower images. Since I'm right-handed and have that page in the center I'm still dealing with, I just flipped my journal around to allow me to add the green to that other side of the page just as easily as I did the other one. So I decided I really liked that ledger paper that I have going on the wildflower pages and wanted to add just a little bit to that center flap that my words are going to go on to tie it into the watercolor wildflower. Those are tongue twisters. The watercolor wildflower images as well. And just like before, I'm softening that ledger paper with a little bit of gesso. Next, I'm adding just a touch of that green on the center fold of these pages and then the bottom of that center page, just to make sure that the pages all go together and they don't look separate. I wanted the watercolor to flood into the center and make sure that it all just looked like a cohesive spread. And now I'm beginning the process of adding my song lyrics to the pages. I was pretty sure the word wildflowers wasn't going to fit all the way across my page, so I grabbed the case from my stamps and just put it on just as a test to see if it would fit, and of course it didn't. This also helped me with spelling such a large word to make sure that I got it correct on the page. I just used that as, a guide to help me out, and I'm going to stick these stickers on my pages. They're actually kind of repositionable stickers, and I have to reposition them several times. I had a random one of these letters sticking on my desk, and when I was cleaning it the other day, I kept wiping around it. I was like, I should just pull that letter off. And when I pulled the letter off, I realized how much it masked the mess of paint around it, and that's what gave me the idea of doing this page, of using the letters as a mask with my soft pastel on the pages. Now I flipped the page over to do the beginning of the song lyrics. I actually did the longer side on the back first for some reason. I don't know why, but I'm adding the rest of it to the front the same way I did the back. Then I thought it would be fun to add some of the wildflowers to the front of this page because there's less words on it as the back page, and I kind of needed to fill space. In the end, you'll see that I kind of fixed what I did here. And then I began to cut the page, and this is kind of where my project goes wrong. So I'm not going to tell you what time it is, but I probably shouldn't have been cutting my page when I was so tired. I messed up, and it doesn't look how I wanted, and when you see the photos in the end, you'll notice there's a large cut that I accidentally made. I made the cut wonky and I had to reposition my letters. It's just a mess. Don't cut your page after midnight. Wait till the next morning. When you're not so tired, don't use scissors so late at night. Or early in the morning, as the case may be here. So next I grabbed my pan pastels. This is what I'm using for the soft pastel of our Three Strange collection of things this month. I wanted to kind of create that bright blue bright blue color from the billboard. I love that bright blue. I kind of didn't get there, but it's close. But actually the bright might have been too bright for my pages, so I actually really like the blue that turned out. I'm just layering different blues here with the pan pastels, wiping it away from those floral images because they're kind of looking green and I didn't want that to happen. I'm making sure that I protect the back page, and then when I flip it, the other page from getting pastel all over them. And I'm just doing the same thing on the back, adding a bunch of that pan pastel around the images. So I haven't sealed my watercolor yet, nor have I sealed this pan pastel. I'm going to grab fixative, run outside, and spray the front and the backs of the pan pastel and the watercolor before I do this next step, which is removing the letters. Had I not sprayed this pan pastel before I removed the letters, it would have been really messy and I wouldn't have had the white space. Some of the pastel actually kind of caked on, I guess, the letter a little bit and spread on that end, but I was able to use an eraser and get it out. That's one thing I love about pan pastels is you can use an eraser to kind of remove them if you need. Also, you can see on that W there, the paper behind kind of ripped. So I just grabbed my applicator sponge and filled it in a tiny bit. Now I also respray these pages in case there's more caking of that pan pastel. I didn't want it to spread around in those letters. I wanted to keep them white. And now to remedy those ugly green flowers. Well, they weren't so ugly. They just didn't do what I wanted them to do. That were on my page. I'm going to watercolor some new flowers to layer on top. I think I mentioned earlier that I ended up changing what I did here, and this is what I end up doing. I'm glad that they kind of messed up because I love the addition of the watercolor flowers on this page instead. I did also spray those flowers with fixative before I put them on the page because the matte medium would have smeared that watercolor. And once I finish this process, I am done with these pages. I used watercolor, soft pastels, and a floral theme to create these fun pages with inspiration from that billboard, the song lyrics, and the Texas spring wildflowers. And that's our menagerie for the month of May. Make sure you check the description box below for links to our guest artists, links to Laura and Erin's videos, and links to all of the supplies that I used this month, along with more information about the Mixed Media Menagerie Challenge if you're new to my channel. I want to take this opportunity to thank you, like I always do, for following along on my art journey for our Mixed Media Menagerie collaboration. Laura, Erin, myself, and our guest artists love seeing what you create each month with our 3 items, our strange collection of things, and when you play along, make sure you tag it with MMMMAY22 so we can find your gorgeous artwork on Instagram and YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've had a marvelous spring and have an even more fantastic summer.